Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
We are right now in the midst of the biggest scandal at the Department of Justice since Watergate in the 1970s. So far, 7 prosecutors have quit the DOJ in protest of Trump's corrupt deal with New York City's Democratic Mayor Eric Adams. In what can really best be described as a blatant quid pro quo, the charges in Mayor Adams' federal bribery case have been conditionally dropped for now in exchange for his full cooperation with Trump's plans for immigration enforcement and mass deportation in New York City. Now, yesterday, 6 career prosecutors, people who signed up to work for Donald Trump, resigned rather than help facilitate such obvious corruption by dropping the charges. This morning, a 7th DOJ official, a man named Hagen Scotton, the lead prosecutor on the case, joined them. In a letter to Trump's acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bovee, Scotton called the deal with Mayor Adams a serious mistake. If no lawyer within earshot of the president is willing to give him that advice, then I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to follow your motion. But it was never going to be me.
It could be a critical week for Mayor Adams as a judge is expected to decide whether to drop his corruption charges. In fact, a rally was held today calling on Governor Hochul to remove the mayor. But as Lisa Rosner reports, he is not backing down.
Governor Hochul standing right next to Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins at the 2025 caucus reception a day after the Westchester Democrats said it was time for Mayor Adams to resign and said she supports Hochul looking at her options. But in a speech Sunday, Hochul didn't address Adams directly. Sunday, immigrant rights groups rallied in Foley Square.
The voters voted for Eric Adams, and now they want a new chance to put somebody else in the seat. We don't want to wait till June.
Last week, the mayor met with President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and agreed to allow ICE agents into Rikers Island. Critics say it skirts sanctuary laws.
I'm a border czar. I care about the border, so let DOJ do what they do.
When asked what he had to say about the rallies calling on him to resign, Adams said,
there are 8.3 million people in the city. Are there going to be 8.3 million people there?
The group New York Communities for Change says they will be outside City Hall Monday at 10 a.m. protesting again, and they plan to be out here every day until Mayor Adams steps down or is removed.
Oh, you know we gotta talk about it. Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD. He's back in the news again, so you know it's nothing good. And isn't it interesting that the one politician who the white media, at least the left corner of it, hates almost as much as the orange man, is these days Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD, a Democrat. Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD has just been getting the business from the white media for the last couple of weeks at least. And it's a hell of a lot more than just allegedly that he's not solidly leftist when it comes to the whole sanctuary city thing. No, this is far deeper than that. Yes, the orange man did tell him that they were going to suspend the federal investigation into him, but that being the case, it's only a momentary reprieve. And you've had all of these folks like on CNN, MSNBC, and all these publications and such saying that, well, couldn't there be state charges brought against him? Yeah, the same way they've been talking about Donald Trump, now they're looking at Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD the same way, same tactics. Because if there's one thing that these good white folks on the political left like more than trashing Republicans, it's trashing some black prominent political figure just to remind everybody that, well, these Negroes over here, they're all actually dirty when you think about it. They're dirty or otherwise unqualified or just undesirable to be in these positions. Yeah, we went ahead and let this fool have this office, but it's only so that we could raise him up only to crush him down to the earth just to watch him fall. And that's what's happening with Eric Adams. It's happening from the very people who pretended to be his buddies. But now they're trying to find out, how do we go ahead and dirty this guy up, because he's up for re-election this year in November. And that being the case, they're already trying to lay the groundwork for him getting voted out. In fact, they don't even want to wait that long. Like Democrats, or rather Demorats, fleeing a sinking ship. All the talk about Republicans being in chaos, well, it looks like the Democrats have some turbulence too, but don't kid yourself. This is cross-party. Now, the polls in New York are already allegedly showing that Adams is unpopular, quote-unquote, and there's clearly an attempt to try to draft the former disgraced governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, to join the race. Last time we saw something like this happen was 2020. Biden wasn't really on the radar to be the Democratic nominee until the DNC realized they didn't really have anyone with the same name recognition or credibility to pit against the orange man. And that's how they started the calls for, oh, let's go ahead and get Biden out of mothballs. Yeah, we know he said he didn't want to run for anything, but god dang it, we don't have anybody else. Reports are that Andrew Cuomo is considering running. That's what the New York Times has him listed as. They got him categorized as considering running. The election is in November, but if he intends to run, he's going to have to be ready for the primary there, and that requires him to basically make a declaration by next month. And he's allegedly just weighing his options and polling and more polling to see whether or not he actually has this one in the bag. Well, the way the white media is talking about it, it's already a done deal, but he doesn't seem to be quite so gung-ho about it. Now, he's clearly not trying to discourage this kind of speculation about him running, and he has been looking for a way to re-enter the political arena for the longest time. You even have Fox News openly describing Andrew Cuomo as a quote-unquote popular governor. This is Andrew Cuomo you're talking about here, a Democrat who comes from a family of Democrat politicians, and yet Fox News is calling him a popular governor. That's how they're talking about Andrew Cuomo. Well, I guess once again, as we've seen with so many other instances, so long as the person in question isn't black, the white media will gladly overlook any of their past scandals or controversies. Just go ahead and dump those down the memory hole and forget about them. But of course, if Andrew Cuomo was black, even if the accusations were totally disproven like they were with Nate Parker, the white media would still harp on about it years or decades later, no matter how long ago it was, and no matter the fact that it was all proven to be false. But yes, this is Fox News praising Cuomo as being popular. You never figured you'd hear them say that about somebody with the last name Cuomo, did you? You had this across-the-board narrative being promulgated by both sides of the white media to push this narrative that Andrew Cuomo is going to be the hero of this particular story. That's what they're crafting here. It's a hero narrative. They're setting this up as a New York native son from a prominent political family, a popular governor, and he's going to be the Big Apple's last hope. I mean, they're not even being subtle about this media manipulation. They're crafting this narrative that everybody's just waiting on pins and needles to see if Andrew Cuomo's going to ride in on a white horse to save the town. This is how the white media does mind control. They basically try to dictate to you what they want you to think. So if Andrew Cuomo does indeed enter the race, the goal is to manufacture in the minds of the people the presupposition that it's inevitable that he's going to win. Why, Eric Adams might as well go bow out, or at the very least, the people already are in Andrew Cuomo's corner. He hasn't even said that he's going to run, but they're already telling people that he's the front runner already. Ain't that something? He's not even in the race. They say, well, doesn't matter that he's not in the race. He's the front runner already. So this is basically them trying to draft him for this election. It's not just the left corner of the white media who's beating the hell out of old officer Eric Adams of the NYPD. They're trying to big up Andrew Cuomo in the hopes that he'll run. There's the equivalent of a palace coup taking place in Officer Adams' kangaroo court. And I bet that when he decided to throw his Burger King crown in the ring 4 years ago, he didn't think it was going to end like this. Oh yeah, the white media, they were going ahead and bigging him up. As long as he was attacking and trashing and thumbing his nose and giving the middle finger to black people, oh yeah, he was the belle of the ball. But as is always the case, they get tired of looking at your black behind sooner or later. It doesn't matter how much dumping on the black community you do. And Officer Eric Adams is being dismantled by the very same white media that invented him. He's an invention of the white media. And that being the case, they had the ability to take him apart, and that's what they're doing. Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD is being dogpiled by illegal immigrant advocacy groups too. So much for your black-brown alliance. Now, the illegal aliens who are in the city, they're not able to vote. But I guess the goal is to see if there's many of the people from their home countries and their ethnic groups and such that they can try to turn against Officer Eric Adams. And considering the fact that his black support has always been shaky at best, he really put himself behind the 8 ball on this one. Just like Kamala Harris, he's finding out that if you decide that you're going to be a black candidate who does not need a black political base, that's fine. But you've built your house on mud. That's what you did. It's like Karen Bass out there in LA. As far as they're concerned, oh, we're free. We don't have to depend on black people for votes. And that means we don't have to sit here and do any of this groveling in front of our white political paymasters and tell them, well, I kind of got to get out there and say some of that stuff that the black community wants to hear. I mean, that is kind of the base that I've got. A lot of these Negroes, they're only too happy to be going into places where they run for office without having a significant number of black people in that area because they feel like that frees them. Now they can just go ahead and they can kiss masses behind full time and not even pretend to give a rip about the black community, even though the story always ends the same way. But the white media and the Democrat powers that be, they're not trying to leave this one up to chance. Not only are they deciding to do everything they can to draft Andrew Cuomo into the race, and also got the white media preparing the public mind with this narrative of, oh, Andrew Cuomo, he's already the front runner, sight unseen, because he's so popular. Don't worry about the whole Me Too scandal thing that he had to leave office under disgrace. We've all forgotten about that because it doesn't matter. That's what they're doing, setting it up, programming the public mind. But now you got these illegal alien advocate groups, and of course you got a whole bunch of wannabe mayors of New York, or otherwise these wannabe political operators waiting in the wings, and they're saying, well, hell, why even wait for November? Why don't we just go ahead and get rid of old Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD now? Because ever since the Orange Man made the announcement that the investigation into Officer Eric Adams has been suspended, you've had Democrats out there saying, well, hell, let's just go ahead and talk to Governor Kathy Hochul, and see if she can use her governor's office to go ahead and just force Officer Eric Adams out. Well, talk about the right tool for the job. Say, has anyone seen Governor Hochul showing this much concern about the beating death of Robert Brooks? Because it needs to be noted that the animals who murdered him still haven't been arrested yet. In fact, their alleged arraignment that's supposed to have happened has been moved, that is, postponed, yet again. And this is happening in a state run by Democrats, by the way. Democrats are the ones operating like this, giving cover and protection to criminals who they can't deny murdered a man on camera, and yet these blue state Democrats are protecting these degenerates no differently than you would get in Greg Abbott's Texas or Ron DeSantis' Florida. How is this any different than the inbred bigots in Louisiana or Mississippi? Again, this is what we're told that Donald Trump was going to institute. Oh, he'd be sitting here covering for the thugs in blue, and yet it's the Democrats going to the mat for them. Remind me again what the big difference is between the Orange Man and these Democrats. And you can tell that even though Officer Adams has found some refuge in Trump's warm embrace, it's still cold comfort for him out there, especially with the white media hammering him day and night. If he thought that this was going to change the headlines, that clearly didn't happen. Hell, it didn't even happen with the right corner of the white media. Fox News is attacking him, saying, yeah, Andrew Cuomo's still the man. We say that he's the front runner. And as for Officer Eric Adams, well, he might as well go ahead and start packing his bags now. Yeah, they're not letting up on him at all. Trump's protection notwithstanding, he's finding out that he's not getting the kind of treatment that he would get if he was white. Now, if this was Andrew Cuomo who found himself having to go to Donald Trump to ask for a favor, what we would be hearing is all of the, well, there's plenty of nuance here, and the son of Mario Cuomo, New York political royalty. Well, Cuomo and Trump kind of came up together through the political ranks and the ranks of fame and notoriety in the 70s and 80s, so there's a lot of overlap. They would be sitting there just hammering you and bludgeoning you over the head with the whole nuance argument. These kind of things are very intricate, That's what they would be saying if this was Andrew Cuomo or any other white politician who went to the Orange Man saying, hey, can you get my neck out of the noose? But if Officer Eric Adams was expecting that kissing Donald Trump's ring would result in the white media's attacks on him being defused and derailed, well, he's finding out that exactly the opposite has happened. Because this is not about whatever accusations of corruption against him there are, whether they be well-founded or not. What this is about is the same game it's always been that these bootlicks never seem to figure out. Sure, Trump went ahead and gave him the golden nod and said, we'll give you a stay of execution, but you would think that this would make it where Fox News, of all people, would be saying, well, if Trump is sticking up for him, he must be okay. There's like, nope. No, that's not going to do it. Andrew Cuomo's a popular governor and he's going to run, and if he does, he's the front runner already. Get that nigger out of here. So I, for one, am enjoying seeing Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD getting beat like a piñata. And that being the case, he better not ever try to bring up, maybe because if I'm a black politician. Oh, no, Officer Eric Adams. When you were running for office, you were saying to black folks that you got to stop blaming race for everything with the police. A lot of these people out here what about black on black crime? Okay, well, in that case, then, Officer Eric Adams, you need to go ahead and remove race from this. Stop trying to pull the race card. And that also goes for that gaggle of suck-ups and professional butt kissers that he surrounds himself with. Yeah, all of these little sorry Negroes who are endorsing him, they don't seem to have any kind of stroke now, do they? Of course not. He surrounded himself with a bunch of people who didn't actually have any influence, didn't actually have any community support. He thought that he was going to separate himself from being dependent on black voters, and as a result, that was going to empower him, and instead it's done exactly the opposite. And so Officer Eric Adams of the NYPD is finding that his career in politics looks like it's going to be coming to a premature end. But truth be told, was this man really in public service to begin with, or was he just serving himself? And while it's totally conceivable that the negative polls the white media is inundating Officer Eric Adams with are merely confirmation bias on their part, crafted polls meant to simply dampen public support for him, the reality is that neither party wants Adams. His support, especially when it comes to donors, is weak. He won't be able to switch horses and become a Republican either, I imagine. Hell, mouth-frothing sellouts like Mark Robinson and bottom-feeding trash like Daniel Cameron, they pulled out all the stops to try to get white Republican votes, from openly attacking reparations in the black community to illegally subverting a grand jury to derail the prosecution of cops who murdered an innocent black woman. These two were some gold-plated sellouts, and they both were resoundingly defeated. Their white Republican voter base didn't want to show up for them. In Cameron's case, those white Republican voters were so opposed to voting for him, they preferred to see a white Democrat become governor before having a black man of any party become their governor. But the long knives are out for Officer Eric Adams. The white media is drooling for the chance to see him slapped in handcuffs and doing the perp walk. My question for him is, if his buddy Letitia James gets pressured to bring charges against him, does he think that she'll hem and haw and dither about for years on end like she did when she decided whether she should prosecute Trump? Or will she suddenly discover how to bring charges in a timely manner? Attacked by his own party, demonized by the white media, and abandoned by the police unions who refuse to say a word on his behalf, I don't know if Officer Eric Adams believes in karma, but if he doesn't, now might be a good time to start. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. BC, Andrew Lewis, Mustang Crazy ATL, Joseph Isaiah, and Avenge the Ancestors. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.